I mean, again, I come from a DWIF mindset, so, I'll keep it clean for your viewers today, but it's do whatever it freaking takes.
Okay.
So, again, and how you do anything is how you do everything. And my dad taught me at a very young age, if you're going to do it, son, do it right. If not, don't do it at all.
The truth is, adding value will never go out of style. Hello, thanks for joining today's podcast, and we're meeting with Scott Rutter today. Raleigh professional, works for the largest family-owned bank.
That's right.
And ultimately a networking guru. So we're going to pick up some tips from Scott and see what Scott's got going on. So thanks for joining us, Scott.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ryan Smith.
And just for anybody who's not familiar with you, for the 8 people that are not in Raleigh, tell us a little bit about your background and where you're from, how you ended up here, and so forth.
Sure. So 22 years collectively in South Florida, Boca Raton. Then as a teenager, did a lot of moving around. So I lived in Canada, Minnesota, Arizona, and then North Carolina's been home for us since 2010. So
okay.
I'm married. I've got 3 kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And lots of traveling there, just for fun or just different opportunities, or?
The dad was a vice president, so we did a lot of moving around. Sister headquarters, brother headquarters. So
okay.
It was very exciting. So.
Do you ever say A?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out and about.
Once in a while?
Yeah.
Out and about?
Out and about and A.
That's funny. So that's a little bit of your backstory, and you've been here in Raleigh, and what'd you do when you first came to Raleigh?
Yeah, so I was with Aaron's Furniture for 10 years, so retail management.
Okay.
And I've recently been now in banking for the past 3 years.
Awesome. So lots of good sales background.
Yeah.
And kind of hardcore sales, right? A little bit of more of a, because I mean, being in security, running telemarketing leads and stuff growing up. And I was actually thinking about something recently. But anyway, so you learn a little bit different. There's definitely different forms of sales, I find. Like you could be a very casual type of sales, and then there's a little bit more of a hardcore sales.
Sure.
And I would kind of consider furniture a little bit more hardcore sales. I would consider that.
Yeah, but I would say so. I mean, again, my approach was always more soft sale approach.
Sure.
But I mean, teach their own on what the best sales strategy is.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I was never really a high pressure person, but and we got to talk about this. We obviously in the office, and I got a love for memorabilia, and turns out you've got a collection that dwarfs mine. So I'm really interested in that. What got you into the memorabilia? Well,
I mean, again, just like yourself, being very competitive. I mean, my whole life, again, if you're not first, you're last. Mm-hmm. And so sports inspire me. So, and it's funny, we were talking about Peyton Manning that you've got on your wall. Again, he's an idol, it sounds like, of both of ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and great guy, and just I always like the guys like we were talking about, like the Larry Fitzgeralds, just class act. Peyton Manning's obviously a class act. So I agree with you, and part of that I think is it you become who you associate with.
Absolutely.
Which to me is a real important principle. But by to me, associating with these guys, by having them around, when I look up and I see a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning, it just kind of, to me, I'm trying to associate myself with people that operate at a high level. So that's real important to me, and I think that's why I love this stuff so much. Other than it's just pretty cool,
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, especially Peyton Manning. I mean, again, he's a tactician, one of the smartest quarterbacks ever to play the game. He's not, obviously, he doesn't have the skill that Tom Brady has. I hate to admit it, because I'm definitely Peyton Manning all the way, not Tom Brady at all. But, every day I kind of pick myself apart and, what's one thing I could have done different? What's one thing I could have done better? So, I try and live my life like Peyton Manning did on the field.
Well, I'll tell you, Peyton versus Tom, that's a conversation we could talk about all day long. But,
yes.
I've had this is way off topic, but I've often thought about what if Peyton went to the Patriots? Because I've got such a huge respect for Belichick and the way he runs things, and obviously a huge respect for Tom Brady. Tom's one of those people, you love him or you hate him. But I believe a Tom and a Belichick, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I believe they really helped each other become the GOATs. And I wonder, had you put Peyton Manning in that situation, what would have happened?
Right.
So,
Agreed.
I think that, anyway, that's a real interesting topic that we could go on for hours. And I used to be more pro Peyton Manning, in terms of like the greatest of all time. But now it's not even debatable. I mean, Tom Brady's just the GOAT, and one of the greatest athletes ever. like them or hate them, it is what it is, you know.
That's right. That's right.
So let's jump into some stuff before we go into the five things. So one of the things I want to do with this podcast is I think our audience is primarily sales professionals, business owners, people that aspire to be a business owner. What are some of the things that you've learned? Three things I want to jump into is networking, which obviously you're doing a lot of that. I want to hear more about that. Success, what are some things you've learned over the years, and maybe some failures and mistakes that you've learned from. And I'll let you jump into any of them in order.
Sure. So we'll start with networking. So obviously, as you know, I have my own networking group that was recently launched 2 months ago. So it's really just helping people connect on a high level. I mean, there's 100 networking events throughout the Triangle, but I wanted to be different. I wanted to be unique from some of the other run-of-the-mill ones. So with that, what makes ours different is again, you go to these things, you might spend 2 hours. We're giving up time with family, church, hobbies. So when you come to the event, it's, hey, if you can meet two people, who those two people be. And I think that just really provides value,
right.
Rather than just kind of going into it not really knowing anybody or meeting the same old. We've actually recently added a layer of giving back to the community as well. So it's about nonprofit organizations, so bringing awareness to the charities. So I think that's really cool.
Well, I've always said, and we're very involved in a lot of charities, and I personally believe, and I'm not judging anybody that doesn't, but I believe that a good business that benefits from the community should support the community back in different ways. And again, if it's all relative to the size of your business and what you can do, but I think it's awesome you're making time to give back.
Sure.
The other thing that I know that you do is you try to support locally owned establishments,
right?
Which is great, I think, because as we support locally owned businesses, we're all stronger together.
Absolutely.
So with the security company, I kind of tell people, ADT, what are they doing for Raleigh, North Carolina? You know what I mean? We're spending almost all of our money in Raleigh, North Carolina, employees and all that sort of thing. So giving back to the community is definitely important.
Got to keep it local.
So there's that, and then the name of the networking is Sphere, is kind of your...
Right, so it's Sphere Clayton Networking, and it's powered, of course, by Rockstar Connect.
Okay, so awesome, and Steve David Elliott, obviously a networking guru as well, so...
Definitely.
You're in great company there and learning from the best. So some tips about networking. You touched on something, and I think it's an important point. One of the things that I've learned from over a decade of networking is when you go to an event, it's better to make 2 good quality contacts than it is to meet 10 people. So you kind of touched on that. So
Sure.
I wanted to drive that point home that it's better to make 2 good quality contacts for sure. What other networking advice would you have?
Yeah, so again, I really agree with that. Another thing, talking about failures, and we'll get more to some of my business failures after we touch on this, but for so long I networked wrong, right? So I'd go there, I'd try to meet the whole room, collect business cards, and then to do what with? So
Right.
I find myself with all these LinkedIn connections and Facebook people, of course, that I don't know. And what's really the point of being connected with somebody if you don't know what they do or how you can add value or help them? So, and I think a lot of us are guilty of that. Again, I meet with people, obviously being in business development daily, and it's funny, we'll go through and kind of who are the mutual connections, and I'm looking for intros or they're looking for intros. So not only are we both guilty of being connected to that person we don't know, but then also the person that's connected to both of us doesn't know us.
Right.
So how do we become more intentional? So that's been my focus, and that's kind of what inspired me to also come up with Sphere is just, again, I've got to learn to meet my connections.
Sure.
And
ultimately, starting with the point, and Madison and I were just talking about this today, that someone reached out and connected with me on LinkedIn.
Sure.
And we didn't meet at a networking event, but I accepted it. They looked like a sharp, person that could have some synergy. And the first thing they do is reach out to kind of sell me on their product or service. Let me just tell you, that's the worst thing you can do on LinkedIn. To someone who's busy, and we're all busy, but if someone connects and the first thing they're doing is trying to get something from me, and again, I subscribe to Gary Vee, jab, 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 right hook. So we were talking about the best thing you could do is add value to other people and find ways to, try to give them the connection, try to make things easier for them. And I think long term, when you really start with that mindset, you're going to benefit because people are just going to like you. You know, if you're helping them accomplish goals, they're going to definitely want to give back to you. And I think a lot of people are going into networking thinking, how can I, make a contact, And here's the other thing, not to hijack the question from you here, but I love networking. A lot of people go to networking with a hunting mindset. They want to go there, they want to hunt, they want to find a prospect that turns into their customer. And that's really not what you want to do with networking. You want to go out there and you want to make relationships, you want to build relationships. So, and I know you're already doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I'll stop puking networking and let you.
No. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we get along so well is, again, we are so like-minded. So givers gain. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, again, if you go out there with, again, a leading hand and try, and what can we do for others? So again, I mean, you can smell it, number one. I mean, when somebody goes out there and they're all about themselves, I mean, again, you want to disassociate with that person immediately. But back to your point, too, on wanting to make 2 quality contacts is, again, your name's important, my name's important. I mean, it's all about, branding. So before I endorse somebody or even think about giving them a referral, I've got to then have kind of like a second date, if you will, or a first date. Because, I mean, let's face it, if we're with them for 10 or 15 minutes at a networking event, we need to then kind of massage that relationship, nurture it, go out, find out what they're about as a person, again, because it might just become very evident early on that this is not somebody that I want to, associate myself with.
Sure.
So I think it is important to really look for those 2 quality contacts.
And so ultimately what you're saying is kind of the follow-up process. So the networking is the beginning, but then you follow up with a cup of coffee, a glass of wine or whatever the scenario is,
Sure.
lunch, whatever everybody's comfortable with. But I think that's where that 30 to 60 minutes is where you really get a vibe for someone. And let's face it, I mean, some people you're just not going to click with.
Right.
And some people you're going to meet them and like 20 minutes later, you're like, how have I survived life without you in my life? Because you just hit it off so good.
Precisely. Yep.
So any other networking stuff you want to throw out there before we move into something else?
No,
Okay.
just, keep networking, keep grinding, again, always what can we do for you, So again, you and I have obviously been successful because of that. So
Definitely similar there. So let's talk about some failures. Let's talk about some mistakes you've learned from.
Well, let's see. It's a long list, so I don't know how much time we have here today. But, again, one of the things failure-wise is, again, I was a business owner as well. We really didn't touch on that. But living in South Florida, I had a window cleaning, pressure cleaning, gutter cleaning business and started it all by myself and later grew it 5 years later to 5 employees. And, one of the failures there was just I wish I could have earlier on identified my weaknesses, the things that I wasn't good at, such as scheduling, bookkeeping. So eventually I did hire a bookkeeper, but again, that's one of the things I wish I would have, caught on to earlier on. There's some wonderful organizations out there. SCORE is one of, many, and other local organizations of people that have been there, done that. They've lived that business owner life, and they're there to kind of help you and support you along the way. So it's back with the saying of, if I knew then what I know now, right?
Sure, and we're all a work in progress for sure. So SCORE, I've never heard of that. Is that just an organization that helps business owners, or? Yeah,
they actually have SCORE Raleigh. If you look it up, they hold free workshops, and it's basically a bunch of retired professionals that have been successful. They've run organizations, so they can kind of give you guidance on what kind of structure entity you should be. Again, sole prop, S corp, LLC,
okay.
DBA, and also just again from like an accounting standpoint. So there's just a lot of tools and resources. So again, if you look up, SCORE Raleigh, and they're all over the U.S.
Well, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm learning something today. That's great. Saying I heard a long time ago is if you're going to walk through a minefield, follow somebody. Right.
Absolutely.
There's no reason to blow off a leg if someone's already walked through it.
That's right.
So that sounds like a great organization. So that's some of the mistakes, and ultimately that's just living life.
Right.
I was having a conversation with someone. I mean, I'm 44, and I feel like I've really just dialed in the last 2 to 3 years on strengths and weaknesses, and being extremely clear about what I really enjoy, what I don't like, what I'm good at, and it just takes time.
It does. And again, I feel like it's just the beginning for us. Again, greater things to, come, absolutely.
Definitely.
Some of the other failures I'd say too is, being in retail management for, 18 years collectively, I guess. For a long time, and it wasn't until like a very young leader kind of came into my life, is I tended to push people over the cliff. I think oftentimes we assume we know where people want to be professionally, and that's just, boy, was I sadly mistaken on that. So to use an example of that is, my employees that work for me, it's like I assumed that they wanted to be where I was at, right? That they wanted to make a handsome income and, again, work a little bit harder to get to that, to get to that. But, it's about meeting people where they're at. It's like what women want. We don't know what women want. Well, we don't know what our employees want unless we have that, discovery conversation and, what makes them tick. And that was, again,
that's great insight. That's something I still work on. Not everybody's motivated by money.
right.
Some people are more motivated by the title. Some people are more motivated by quality time. And kind of boils back to love languages, I think. So that's great insight. So know your employees.
Right. Absolutely.
Self-awareness, know yourself, and then get to know what other people want. And then again, I think a good business owner / manager is going to know what his employees want and do his best. Like within my organization, if I can help them get what they want while they're helping the company get what it needs, it's a win-win scenario. To me, that's the goal. It's,
right.
Synergy.
That's absolutely going to pay dividends. And one kind of failure, one nugget that might help some of your viewers out as well, not something that I personally went through, but, again, the micromanagement, again, I see so many leaders out there, people I've even helped develop, they have their thumb on everything, and, employees want to be empowered. Seriously, if they don't want to be empowered, then you don't want them on your team. But, leaders need to learn to let go. I know it's tough because, again, tough, especially when you've grown the business yourself, but, really kind of get them cross-trained and, find out what makes them tick. Because, again, they want to be challenged and they want to thrive in the environment too. So, again, if they have a job description, again, make it more than that, expand on that,
right.
Because we're developing the future. So, and then also I would just say one more thing to dive into is, team building, right? If you have multiple employees, do things outside of work, trampoline park, again, paintballing, whatever it be. Just taking them out to dinner. And you really get a long way. It's the little things that count. If they like candy, if they like coffee, if they have a favorite lunch place, and again, you don't have to do it all the time, but just, every once in a while, doing stuff like that for them, it makes them feel very special.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So that's great stuff. And now we'll jump into successes now that we're done beating ourselves up about what bad managers we've been in the past and
right.
What mistakes we've made. Successes, let's talk about some good stuff.
Yeah, so again, first of all, again, I come from a DWIF mindset, so I'll keep it clean for your viewers today, but it's do whatever it freaking takes.
Okay.
So again, and how you do anything is how you do everything. And my dad taught me at a very young age, if you're going to do it, son, do it right. If not, don't do it at all. You definitely don't want to half-butt anything. So with that, it's allowed me to kind of persevere, and I've always been driven. It's passion with a purpose. So whatever I'm doing, again, whether I'm pushing shopping carts or shoveling crap, again, I'm going to have the cleanest shopping carts, and I'm going to have, I guess, the best shovels of manure, I guess, if you will. But it's just, doing whatever it takes.
Right. Going the extra mile.
Going the extra mile.
There's not a lot of traffic on the extra mile.
Sure.
And that's 100%. I can relate to that just being from the military. I think one of the great things I got out of the military is that they would take us on these runs, and you're running for miles and they're smoking you, you're gassed, and you would hit the corner and you start running back towards the barracks. And so you're sitting there thinking, okay, the barracks are right there, we're almost done. And you're driving, everybody's running this and that, and they hang a right turn and they go take you for another mile. And you would have a bunch of people that will fall out of the run, and it was a mental thing. It wasn't that they physically couldn't handle it. It's they saw the barracks right there, and once they hung the right turn, and they're gonna take us and smoke us some more, so many people couldn't handle that mentally. But I think over time you get conditioned to be prepared that, hey, that right turn can happen at any time in business. I'm excited about a great week ahead. There could be a right turn that comes up, and all of a sudden you got to deal with it. So you just got to be prepared that whatever comes up, I'm just going to power through it.
Absolutely, got to plow through, and again, just always be ready to overcome adversity, because
Right.
again, life's going to continue to throw disasters at us, and again, we got to, yep.
It's another thing. Life's going to bring enough drama. Don't surround yourself with people that bring more with it.
That's right.
That's
Fade
another-
away. Fade away.
Love them from a distance. What else you got for us? These
Yeah,
people
so-
are hungry. These people want to know,
Yes.
Scott.
All right. So, again, so success. So going back to when I owned my own business. So again, being a service-based business, again, I'd knock on doors and just offer free estimates. And, and then when I did a job and I got that job, ask them could I put like a real estate sign of my company information on there? And just giving people more than what they expect, so exceeding expectations. Back to your point, it's lonely on the extra mile. And another one of my things is boss up. You got to one up the competition. If my boss expects 2 from me, guess what? He's going to get 3. So you always want to strive to do more. Another thing that's been successful for me is just developing people. I've got a real passion for people. I've been able to promote several people throughout my, career. And, I think a lot of that success is because I'm willing to share the playbook. I'm an open book. A lot of leaders tend to, hold it back. And, they're concerned about, hey, if this person passes me, I'm going to be out of a job. And boy, are they mistaken, because I'm telling you, there's no better feeling when you take people from, Aaron's Furniture, for example, and my best friend, his best man at his wedding. He started out as a delivery driver of mine, and then he went into the same role that I had. And, we never know who we're going to work for tomorrow either. But that's what, paying it forward's all about, right? So those are just some of the, few successes I've had.
I think it's awesome. I think ultimately you have you want to begin with the end in mind. And I really do my best to think in terms of my deathbed or my funeral. Are people going to be there because you withheld information from them? You didn't help them succeed. No, they're going to be there because you enhanced their lives. You help people be better. You want people to this is for me. I want people to say that, I'm so glad I met Brian because of A, B, and C. Like always this or always that, always a positive and this and that. And I think that ultimately I start there and work my way backwards.
Sure.
So to me, it's not always about the short term. For me, it's the long term, and you know what, if I get someone and they surpass me or this and that, well, I'm self-employed. I'm not really worried about that, but to your point, though, I think when you empower other people, it'll end up working out in the long term. And so going right into the 5 Things podcast, what do we got for us, Scott?
So today we're going to talk about relationships, budget, credit, emergency planning, and retirement.
Okay. Awesome. Number 1.
Yeah, so relationships. So first of all, people do business with people they like, know, and trust. So again, I'm now with, a new company, right? But it doesn't matter if I then left this company I'm with today and went somewhere else tomorrow. They do business with us, with me. So,
Definitely. It's a huge principle, and, you just can't understate it. People largely determine if they're even open-minded to doing business with you in like the first 5 or 6 seconds.
Sure.
It's really impactful, that first impression, but definitely, people like to do business with people that are usually similar to themselves.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's the first thing you got. What number 2?
So the second one's going to be budget. So 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So I know when I first came into banking, again, I had to take a hard look in the mirror, and I wanted to be the very best banker I could be to serve my clients the best. And so it forced my wife and I to kind of sit down and, look at, what was coming in versus what was going out. Because again, we all have our hard costs, right? Usually
Right.
It's going to be your mortgage or your rent. It's going to be a car payment. And then, of course, you have the lights, groceries, things of that sort. But
Wine.
Wine, yes. Wine. Well,
Wine,
in my
but-
case, it's scotch and bourbon, but yes,
Oh, okay.
I do like wine too. But that I can only drink in the house, because if not, it just buzzes me too much out in public.
Okay.
But anyway, moving on. Again, there was just so much, fat that we were able to trim. Just being disciplined and intentional. And my dad says it best: grab for the gusto, because tomorrow's not promised, neither is today. So you don't want to be so frugal and so cheap to where you can't enjoy the finer things in life. But it's like we cut the cord. Spectrum, we went from paying paying like 170 a month to where now we pay like 70 a month. And there was just so many vices in there. I mean, everybody wants to, I'm paycheck to paycheck, but again, maybe they're getting too many Manny's petties. Now that I did not cut out of it because I know we both definitely enjoyed the Manny's and petties, a little metro in us.
Yeah.
But, it also, as a banker, it allows me to understand the debt structure and, kind of what they have planned around savings, if they're saving. And so that's why budget's very, very important. And that's one of the things that I do for all of my clients.
Growing up, I really didn't have a lot of coaching. So I had to learn a lot of that on my own. So it's always good knowing that there's a lot of people that didn't really have financial coaching, didn't really understand credit and that sort of thing. And I really wish they would teach more of that in school.
Sure.
Because it's super practical and it's just something you have to know. So obviously having a good banker to help you out with that, to make sure you got a good roadmap to operate with is always good.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very fortunate and blessed to work for a company to where we do believe in that. It's financial literacy. So we're actually out there pounding the pavement, going to churches, going to schools, helping educate people about, what wasn't taught to us as, kids, because it is so important. The second subject is around credit. So, it's about, credit utilization. As banks are just, out there in general, we're so quick to throw credit cards or throw certain credit products out at people, but we don't coach them based on, the utilization. So just to talk about that for a second, if you've got a $10,000 credit card, with that limit available, you never want to charge more than $3,000. I mean, ideally, obviously zero, right? But
as far as carrying the
balance.
Yeah, your
right.
debt to income, or not debt to income, the
credit utilization.
Credit utilization, yeah.
But I mean, some people, and again, I mean, how would you know any different? Especially if you're new to credit, they'll
Sure.
go out, they'll charge up the whole thing, pay it off, and think they're doing themselves a service when in fact, really they're hurting themselves. Because as a bank, or as any lender out there, that throws up all kinds of, red flags. I also coach my clients to be very cautious when applying for credit. You definitely don't want to be out, applying every couple of months, because that's also, what are you going to go, get a bunch of credit and then file bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So, it's just more of a holistic, educate people about what they don't know.
Right.
Yep.
Now, would you say people that are concerned about identity theft maybe just completely annihilate your credit, get like a 320 beacon score? I'm just kidding, of course.
Yes.
Although that would probably work. But next up, what do we got?
Yeah, so the next thing is emergency planning. So, I mean, again, it's so important. And doing the budget really allowed my wife and I to, where we had like 3 months saved up, if I was to lose my job, now we've gotten to the point of where we have 6 months of, my monthly salary saved up. Mm-hmm. So, that's real important. And then also for all the homeowners out there, if you have equity in your house, I would highly recommend you have an equity line of credit. Because again, it's for the unknown, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it can be used for a lot of different things, whether it's investing in another property, again, like in my son's case, college education, it's something I want to leverage for that. Mm-hmm. So,
my thought process when it comes to banks and things like that is line it up when you don't need it.
Right.
Because usually when you need it, the banks are not really wanting to give it to you. It's been my, experience or things I've seen. Certainly it's just harder to get the money when you need it versus getting a $20,000 equity line on the house and you don't really need it for anything, but it's good to have.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. I'm glad you brought that up. And again, you sold it better than I did. So, it is about having it when you don't need it. A lot of clients, they come in and, it's either an express need, so they want my help on doing debt consolidation, or, they have some major home improvement project on their mind, or they have something that's coming up in the future. But what I really enjoy most is, the unperceived need, because people don't realize the importance of having it in place, and it's free. So why would you not have it? I mean, at least where I'm at, it's free. So if it's not costing anything, why would you not want to have it? So, right. And you're right, those same people that say, hey, I'll come back when I need it, then those are the same people that, now I can't get approved.
Or it's higher interest because it's higher risk because you're under the gun or something. And kind of boils back to a principle, proactive versus reactive.
Right.
So proactive is definitely better. We got the last one?
Last one's going to be around retirement. So, I mean, again, for, something for all of us is 15% of your salary should be being contributed to some kind of a retirement vehicle. So, Obviously you want to max out the 401k, especially if your employer's, doing a good match on that. Also, Roth IRA,
yeah.
is definitely another one. And then, from there, whatever's left, whatever other retirement vehicle, whether it's playing stocks, cryptocurrency, mutual
Good
funds.
old bottles of wine.
Yes, that appreciate value, or good bottles of scotch,
Right.
or bourbon. But yeah, so that would be
tempted.
the last one.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for stopping in today, Scott. It's been a great conversation. Enjoyed learning some new stuff about you. I'm going to have to come check out that memorabilia. But thanks for dropping in. We hope this added value to you and helped you in your day-to-day living your life and helping you succeed.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me.
Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.